The ship came down in the Gobi Desert on a Thursday. No explosion, no fire, just a sound like the sky folding in half, and then silence, and then a crater the size of a small city with a ship at the bottom of it that didn't look like anything humanity had ever imagined building. The Vethori crew abandoned it within 6 hours. They left a beacon standard galactic distress protocol, and they left a warning tag bolted to the main hatch. The tag was written in 17 languages, none of them human, but the universal hazard symbols were clear enough: radiation, structural instability, catastrophic, drive, failure. The translation came later, once the UN's xenolinguistics team finished their work. This vessel is non-recoverable. Any attempt to board or salvage constitutes willful entry into a condemned structure. The Vethori Merchant Consortium accepts no liability for injury, death, or dimensional destabilization resulting from unauthorized access. The tag was still warm when Chief Engineer Dr. Yuna Seo pulled it off the hatch and handed it to her assistant. "File that," she said. "Under what category?" her assistant asked. Yuna was already walking toward the hatch. Challenge accepted. The International Salvage Team had 47 engineers, 12 physicists, 9 material scientists, and one very confused Vethori consul named Adrek Vel, who had been assigned to observe and had not expected to be horrified quite this quickly. Adrek Vel was tall, blue-gray, and built like something that had evolved to survive cold oceans. He had 4 eyes, 2 of which were currently fixed on Dr. Seo as she disappeared through the hatch without any protective equipment beyond a hard hat and a headlamp. "She cannot do that," he said to Colonel Jaewon, who was standing beside him with a thermos of coffee and the calm expression of someone who had long ago made peace with chaos. "She's doing it," Jaewon said. "The drive core is cracked. There are 17 documented failure points. The structural integrity of the lower decks is..." "She knows." Jaewon offered him the thermos. "Coffee?" Adrikville stared at it. "I don't understand your species." "Most people don't." Jaewon took a sip. "That's kind of the point." The ship was called the Mekath Dural, roughly translated Prosperous Passage, and it had been a mid-range freight hauler before its drive core suffered a cascade failure during a routine fold jump. The Vethori crew had done everything correctly. They had evacuated in good order, filed the proper reports, and written the vessel off as a total loss with the philosophical equanimity of people who understood that some things simply could not be saved. They did not understand humans. Yuna spent the first 3 days just mapping the damage. She crawled through conduits that no Vethori engineer had designed for human body proportions, sketched power routing diagrams on paper because her tablet sensors couldn't penetrate the hull alloy, and slept 4 hours a night in a field tent outside the crater because she didn't want to waste time commuting. On the 4th day, she called J1 into the ship. "Look at this," she said, shining her headlamp on a section of the drive assembly that looked, to J1's untrained eye, like someone had taken a perfectly good engine and put it through a hydraulic press. "It looks destroyed," J1 said. "The primary coils are, but look here," she pointed. "The secondary containment ring is intact, and the magnetic resonance chamber. See that? Not a scratch." The Vethori cracked this thing open and saw the surface damage and called it dead. They never checked whether the subsystem survived. Jaewon looked at the intact components, then at Yuna. "Can you use them?" "I can use them," she said, "to build something the Vethori don't have a word for yet." Adrikvel filed 17 formal objections over the next 2 months. The UN acknowledged each one with a polite letter and continued working. The thing Yuna was building didn't have an official name yet. The engineering team called it the conversion, because that was what it was: a wholesale transformation of a broken alien freight hauler into something humanity had never possessed and no one in the galaxy had thought to create, because no one else would have looked at a condemned wreck and seen potential. The cracked drive core, it turned out, produced an incredibly powerful and unstable energy discharge when manipulated correctly. The Vethori had designed their containment systems to prevent that discharge. Yuna redesigned those systems to direct it. You are weaponizing a drive failure, Adrekvel said. When she finally explained what she was doing, his voice had the particular flatness of someone experiencing conceptual vertigo. I'm weaponizing the part they threw away, Yuna corrected. The part they gave up on. There's a difference. The difference is academic, when the result is a ship that can produce a focused discharge capable of what? What is the yield? Yuna told him. Adrekvel sat down on the floor of the crater, which was not something his species typically did, and stared at nothing for a long moment. The Vetheri Consortium paid 20 million credits to write that vessel off, he said finally. I know, and in the course of salvaging it, you have created a weapons system that does not exist anywhere in documented galactic technology. Close, Yuna said. We've created a weapons system that exists in documented galactic technology as a known failure state. No one militarized it because no one thought you could control it. Can you control it? Yuna smiled. It was the smile of someone who had slept 4 hours a night for 2 months and was running on coffee and conviction. Come to the test on Friday. The test was attended by representatives from 11 nations, 4 galactic observer species, and 1 deeply reluctant Vethori consul. They fired the conversion at a decommissioned satellite array at a distance of 300 kilometers. The array had been rated to survive a direct strike from any known weapons system in Tier 3 galactic classification. It did not survive. The discharge hit it in a coherent beam approximately 2 seconds long. When the light cleared, the array was not destroyed so much as it had ceased to exist in the configuration of an array and now existed in the configuration of a debris field. J1 stood at the observation post with his arms crossed and watched the telemetry come in. Around him, the human observers were quiet, not stunned, exactly, but processing. They had believed in this. They had worked on this. Actually seeing it was a different kind of knowing. Adrekvel broke the silence. How many of these can you build? He asked. Yewan looked at him. We found 3 more abandoned Vethori ships in our historical record. Impact sites, mostly in uninhabited regions, previously dismissed as meteor strikes. Yewan, you've been looking. We're always looking. J1 turned back to the telemetry screen. The Gobi ship just happened to be the freshest. The other 3 have been sitting in the ground for decades. Plenty of time to have checked whether the subsystem survived. Adrekvel was very still for a moment. Have they? We'll know by spring. The galaxy learned about the conversion 6 weeks later, when Adrekvel's report reached the Vethori Consortium, and the consortium, to their credit, immediately forwarded it to the Galactic Commerce and Defense Coordination Board rather than attempting to suppress it. The board convened an emergency session. Humanity was invited to present. Dr. Yuna Seo presented. She was still wearing the same kind of hard hat. She had replaced the headlamp with a presentation clicker. She explained in clear and simple terms what the conversion was, how it worked, why it worked, and what humanity intended to do with it. She explained that Earth had no aggressive designs on any galactic neighbor. She explained that the technology had been developed from materials legally salvaged under standard interstellar abandonment protocols, that every step had been observed by a credentialed Vetheri diplomatic representative, and that the resulting weapons system was the sole intellectual property of the human species. Then she put up a slide. The slide said, "We didn't steal your ship. You gave it to us." And below that, "Next time, maybe don't leave things on our planet." The board chamber was very quiet. Then the Korath representative, massive, stone-colored, with a voice like grinding basalt, made a sound that its translation implant rendered as a laugh. "I like these ones," the Korath representative said. It was, Adrekvel reflected later, the most succinct summary of humanity he had ever heard. He filed it under challenge accepted.